Which is, it was that reforming Blair government in 1998 that banned grammar schools for the first time. And it's a great measure of how progressive we can be when we win, when we're in power. And other than that, we simply complain about it. We're in opposition. And my worry with Jeremy is that he's too satisfied with being in opposition and not hungry enough to be in power to change things.
Hang on. There's a few people who sort of booed and hissed there. This seems to be a feature of some of these things. Who was booing? I just want to explain why they were just booing. You were booing, madam. Can we just get a microphone down? Why do you boo at events like this?
Because I'm just so angry. I can talk loud enough. I don't need your microphone.
but why boo? This is a democratic event.
I'm just so angry at what the rest of the Labour Party are doing to Jeremy Corbyn. Yeah. I think they're cowards. I think they're cowards. They're old Blairites. Everybody hates Tony Blair.
I mean, well, I'll let you guys debate that point.
Let me come back on that.
I mean, Tony Blair did pass the grammar school ban that you back.
Yeah, that's one thing he did. What about all the rest of the things he did? They sold the Labour Party out. The centrist Labour Party are rubbish. We don't want them. They're no good to this country.
Yeah. No, do you agree with centrist?
Can I maybe respond to that, Faisal? Because it was directed at me, obviously.
OK, go on. And then we'll let Jeremy Corbyn come back in.
Well, all I would say is, herein lies part of the problem we've got in the party right now, that we've become so deeply divided. Because I don't agree with you that everybody hates Tony Blair. And I don't agree with you that Tony Blair didn't do much for this country. I think the reality is a minimum wage, trebling spending on the NHS, introducing Sure Start, paternity rights, maternity rights, making sure that we had an Equalities Act, a Human Rights Act in this country. You know, these were massive steps forward for Britain. Getting rid of grammar schools was a big step forward for this country. I wasn't even in Parliament when Tony Blair was the leader of this party. I've never described myself as a Blairite because, to be honest, I think I'm slightly to the left of Tony Blair on quite a lot of issues. But the truth is, unless we get beyond this sort of Punch and Judy where, you know, everybody's in favour of one individual or not, we're a movement. We're not a man, we're a Labour movement. We're not one person. He's not the only arbiter of what's right or wrong in the Labour Party. He's just one man. I'm just one man. We need to be united once more as a movement. That's the crucial thing.
OK, well, we've gone through that already. Mr Corbyn.
He never got behind any of the ones we had previously. He never got behind Tony Blair.
I was actually in Parliament throughout the whole period from 1997. All the things you just mentioned, I voted for. Yeah. I voted for the Human Rights Act, the Equalities Act, Sure Start, the minimum wage. I voted for all those things. Where I disagreed with that government was on what I thought was its illiberal approach on anti-terrorism law. Where I disagreed with that government was on the private finance initiative, which has been such a millstone around hospitals and schools' necks. And where I disagreed very profoundly with that government was on the war in Iraq and the following of US foreign policy.
OK, we're going to come on to foreign policy. Just in terms of the conduct of this campaign, leadership campaign, when people say they hate the former Labour Prime Minister, when there's booing and hissing, what do you say? You said you wanted a kinder politics.
I don't do hate, I don't do booing,
well, some of your supporters clearly do.
Well, I ask people to be kind. In some cases, it takes longer than others.
Faisal, you see, Jeremy laughs it off again, and he said earlier in the debate...
and you've done plenty of it.
He said he laughs it off. No, and I haven't, Jeremy, I haven't. That's not true. The reality is, in this contest, we've had successive hustings in which Harriet Harman has been booed, Kezia Dugdale has been booed, Tony Blair has been booed, Tom Watson has been booed. I've been booed at all of these things. Now, the reason that is going on is we've become deeply divided around one individual. And one individual is not the Labour movement. That's the simple message. We need to get back to thinking about... Well, Jeremy used to say that he wanted a contest for the Labour leadership every year. He gave an interview a couple of years ago in which he said he didn't want to be the leader because he wanted to be able to disagree with his party. So the truth is, Jeremy has been someone who's always wanted to have dispute and debate within the Labour Party, and I'm very clear that this is a contest.
Owen, you were saying about you want unity, and you're talking about Jeremy supporters doing things. Well, there was a Progress Labour First meeting on Monday, Committee Room 12, and I've heard from people that they said all sorts of nasty, very divisive tweets were coming out of that meeting. How can you get unity if people like that, I think West Streeting and other people, were sending tweets like that?
Nasty tweets, apparently, from some other MPs.
Well, I'm not a member of either Progress or Labour First, and therefore I don't know anything about the meeting you're talking about. But I do think it's generally true, and this audience tonight bears it out, I suppose, that a lot of people who are very supportive of Jeremy and who see Jeremy as the only guardian at the moment of Labour values are very aggressively engaged in this contest, in this campaign, and emotionally engaged in it. And I understand people wanting to be emotional and people feeling deeply about the future of the Labour Party, but I do think we all need to calm down a little bit. I do think Jeremy needs to tell his supporters to calm down.
Just the lady here in the